With the focus on next year, we'll take a look at three big-time free agents that the Cardinals should at least kick the tires on this upcoming offseason. This is Locked On Cardinals.
You are Locked On Cardinals, your daily St. Louis Cardinals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, Cardinals fans. I'm JD Hafford, and I'm a national radio sports anchor, born and raised in the Lou, and a lifetime Cardinals fan. And I'm your host for Locked On Cardinals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. You can follow me on Twitter, X at JD Sports Radio, and the podcast at LO_Cardinals. We want to thank those of you who make Locked On Cardinals your first listen every day. Free and available wherever you get your podcasts. We're also on YouTube. This is a show that serves Cardinal Nation and gives the best fans in baseball all of the info about the birds on the bat. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel, now through September 22nd. All FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. So the Cardinals lose the final game of their series against the Pirates by a score of 3-2, but end up taking 3 or 4 from them in the series. So once again, the people on YouTube, you get to see the beauty. That is the Old Man Loud series victory shirt again today. I think it was in this series. I actually saw somebody out in the bleachers wearing one of these shirts because it was like one of the freebies. I don't remember when they gave them away, but it was one of the freebies that they hooked people up with, one of the promotional things that they gave away. And my mom just happened to go to the game that they got them, and this is what this shirt has become. But when you think about it, the Cardinals have played better recently. You've got series victories now over just like here in September, like, the final game against the Yankees. So you won that series. The Brewers, the Reds, and the Pirates here in September. You've lost 2 series against the Mariners and the Blue Jays, only 1 win in those 2 series. So the record looks worse at 9-8 than it feels like to me, because it feels like they've been winning a lot more baseball games than they've been losing. You've seen a lot more of, the ice baths after the game, which is nice to see that the guys have kind of accepted their fate and they're having some fun when they are winning here in the month of September. You got the Guardians in at Busch Stadium this weekend for the final home series of the season. Then it's off to Colorado and then San Francisco to finish up the year. And the Cardinals are right about where most of us thought they would be. That at the beginning of the season, we were like, they're kind of an 81 type of team. I said 84 wins, which is not out of the realm of possibilities yet, but they are 77 and 76. So middle of the road. They're not a good team. They're not like a terrible team either. They're just, there's kind of middle of the road, which is actually a really terrible place to be. It is, because it kind of puts you in the mindset that, if so-and-so does better next year, we'll be even that much more better next year, and it would make you think like, we don't really have to make a lot of drastic changes to this roster to get it back to being a playoff competitive spot. It only needs the people that we got to be better, right? You've had down years from Paul Goldschmidt, Arenado, Gorman, Walker, injuries to Wilson Contreras. I don't think we bring that up enough, to be honest, how huge it's been that Wilson Contreras has been hurt all year, like with terrible injuries too. So not like just little things, a broken arm, and now he's dealing with the finger thing that knocked him out for the rest of the year. I mean, these are huge, and you're taking out the guy that was supposed to be your cleanup hitter. He was supposed to be the main bat in the middle of this order, or he was at least going to hit third for most of the year. So that's huge. And the offense was not able to score enough runs for this type of starting rotation. You look at Gray and Gibson and as being what you thought they were going to be. You were hoping Gray was going to be better than he has been, but again, he's got 200 strikeouts and he's given up a lot more home runs this year. But I think this is kind of what you expected from Sonny Gray. I mean, I don't think you could go in saying he was going to be the exact same guy he was with Minnesota last year. Like, I think you knew some regression was coming. But unfortunately, Gibson was good, but Lynn was better than I thought he was going to be. But Michaelis was terrible. Matz is hurt all year again. Palante has been a nice bright spot here in the second half of the season. Michael McGreevy has now opened some eyes, certainly, with how he's performed here in the last two outings at the major league level, and what he's done at Memphis in the second half of the year. But there's improvements to be made, right? And if you aren't going to rely on just these other guys getting better that are coming through your system, which is something that I know scares the hell out of a lot of people, and I'm sure it scares the hell out of the front office. They don't want to see another season of what we just got from Nolan Gorman and Jordan Walker, who were supposed to be big-time pieces of your puzzle. And again, most of their time has been spent in Memphis this year as a combination. So if the Cardinals decide to move on from Paul Goldschmidt's, they're just gonna, it's time to move on. He was making $26 million this year. Gibson and Len probably not going to be back the more that you look at it. Specifically Len. Gibson, I think they're probably going to talk about it, but he's making $12 million. Len's making $11 million. That's like $50 million to work with to make some additions for next year's team. Don't forget about Sonny Gray's salary escalation. It goes from $10 million to $25 million next year. So keep that in mind when you go through this stuff. But if the Cardinals do want to make additions through free agency, they're going to have a little bit of wiggle room to do it. Will the front office invest in a big-time free agent? Or do you think they kind of go like what they did this past year, where instead of going after one of the big fish, they're like, well, let's get a Lynn and let's get, a Gibson and let's sign a couple of bullpen guys. Do they go that route instead? Because there's still some bullpen things they got to figure out. Andrew Kittredge is not under contract for next season. It's debatable to which way they're going to go. Like, our minds say they're going to go the cheap route, right? Because that's what we're used to. But we can have a little fun with it and say, if they do decide to go after one of the big fish, who could they chase after? Or who should they be chasing after? This front office and this ownership, 2 years of not making the playoffs now, attendance dipping horribly here in 2024. They got to feel some pressure here to do something other than just relying on the young guys for bounce back seasons to get them where they need to be. So, and you're competing with expensive payrolls out there in the National League. The Cardinals aren't going to be up at the levels of where the Mets, the Phillies, the Dodgers, and the Braves are. They're not going to spend that much money. We all know that. They're spending way more than the Cardinals are. Cubs and Giants also spending more than the Cardinals this year, but the NL Central champion Brewers have spent much less once again, like $60 million less. Than them. The Padres were like $10 million less. The D-backs are like $3 million less, pretty comparable. But the point is that the team should have some room to sign at least one big-time free agent if they decide to go that route. And obviously, if they can woo that person to want to come to St. Louis and be a Cardinal. A recent article suggested 3 names that they need to be going after. 2 of them are hitters. 1 of them is a pitcher. We're going to go through them next on Locked On Cardinals. For most of us that like collecting cards, the idea of spending $2,000 or more on a Luka Doncic card or an Elly De La Cruz or a Patrick Mahomes rookie card is just not in the cards, right? Collecting is a lot of fun, but that's some serious money for many people to drop on cards. And thanks to slab packs from arenaclub.com, it's possible to actually score gem mints for a fraction of their retail price. Arena Club is the only repack that provides real value, a complete view of all possible cards and clear hit rates for each one. Arena Club slab packs are revolutionizing the repack game with transparency. After your pulls are revealed, they'll immediately be placed in your showroom for safekeeping, for selling, trading, or auction. The Arena Club grading process, it's accurate, it's fast, it's transparent, with a full grade rationale provided and explanation of how your particular card was actually scored. Now, whether you're buying, whether you're selling, you could be trading, or just displaying. Arena Club is the card collecting platform that you got to check out if this is something you're into. So right now, you can get 10% off your first slab pack or card purchase by going to arenaclub.com/LockedOnMLB and then use the code LockedOnMLB. That's arenaclub.com/LockedOnMLB, Code LOCKEDONMLB, LOCKEDON MLB for 10% off your first purchase. Thank you for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen today. For your second listen, enjoy the Locked On MLB podcast hosted by Sully, who is here daily to provide national expertise with his trademark humor. You can prepare for the Fall Classic with Sully, who's got you covered each and every day on Locked On MLB, which is available on YouTube or wherever you're getting your podcasts, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. A reminder, you can catch every pitch of the Cardinals' hometown broadcast for this final weekend with SiriusXM. Just download the SXM app and search the word Cardinals. Zach Presnell at fansided.com dropped a write-up recently. And I love going through all these different blogs and stuff, just seeing what other people are talking about, what they're thinking about. It's a more fun way to go about looking at what the Cardinals may or may not do. And I know the reaction when you hear these names is going to be like, nope, not going to do it. And that's fine. You can think that way if that's what you want to think. But it doesn't change the fact that these particular free agents are going to be out there. They can be had. And the Cardinals would probably be doing themselves the right thing by at least talking to these guys, right? And just seeing what exactly it would take to bring somebody like this in. Because this team needs some impactful moves. All right. It feels like you're like one guy away in either the rotation or in the lineup. One big person away from making that next step. And then hopefully you get the progression of some of the guys that we talked about that had down years this year. Like you hope Nolan Arenado's better next year, and Jordan Walker and Nolan Gorman. You hope they're better next year. You hope Wilson Contreras is healthy next year. But it wouldn't hurt to add one of these guys, right? And they're probably not going to be able to afford two of them. They may not be able to afford one of these guys. But Zach Presnell, in his words, said these are three guys must sign to win the NL Central and more in 2025. And he brings up what I mentioned when he starts his article out about how the Cardinals are in a bad spot, which, you know, we're seeing it the same way, where it's a tough spot to be because you don't want to rebuild. You know, you're not so bad that you got to tear everything down, but you also don't want to spend a fortune in what it would take to take you to that next level. You're not going to do what the Rangers did, where they went out and got Seager and Simeon and then DeGrom, and they're not going to spend like that. But if you can bring one of these guys in, maybe that will push everything into the right direction a little bit more and help lead them to better days ahead in 2025. So let's go through what he's calling the dream of free agent signing, starting off on the mound, Blake Snell. Blake Snell, San Francisco Giants. Now, here's what Zach says. There may not have been a player in baseball that had a more roller coaster season than the Giants' ace, Blake Snell. Snell expected to get a long-term contract last offseason, but after a complete mishandling of the situation by his agent, Scott Boras, Snell landed a short-term deal with the Giants after missing spring training. Missing spring training came back to haunt him early in the year, causing many to speculate that he would accept his massive player option in the 2025 season. But now Snell has turned his game around and again shown that he's a Cy Young caliber arm. All signs indicate that he will decline his option and enter free agency in pursuit of a multi-year contract. The Cardinals have already dished out a ton of money towards their starting rotation, but they need an arm like Snell to place atop the rotation. St. Louis could look to trade a guy like Miles Mikolas during the offseason in order to clear cap space and a spot in the rotation. Snell would be a complete game changer in St. Louis. He can go toe-to-toe with any pitcher in the league. When Snell is on, he pitches like the best pitcher in baseball. St. Louis needs a certified ace in their staff, and Snell is the perfect guy for that role. We talked about Blake Snell this offseason. He was a guy that honestly, I think everybody thought was going to get a monster deal. It seemed like the Yankees is where he was going to end up, and then nothing came to fruition. And I don't remember or ever saw what exactly Boras was asking for Blake Snell, but he certainly didn't get the long-term deal he was hoping for. There was, some teams were not thrilled with the amount of walks and how he doesn't throw deep into games very often. And I don't know, the Cardinals' whole plan this offseason was to find some guys who could, eat innings is what we were looking for. Somebody who could go 6 innings and give up 3 earned runs, turn it over to the bullpen, and that's how you would get the wins. And it worked a decent amount of time. But if you're only trying to get 6 innings, Blake Snell gives you 5 or 6 pretty much every time. So, and he gives you Cy Young caliber pitching. So if you were going to spend a lot of money on a rotation arm, this is the guy that you would probably look at. I mean, he's got 2 Cy Young awards since July. All right, here, like his stats, when Zach talks about how he's turned things around. At the start of July, coming into the month of July, Blake Snell was 0-3 with an ERA of 9.51. Looked like an absolutely terrible signing by the Giants. Since the month of July started, he is 4-0 with a 1.33 ERA. He's thrown a no-hitter against the Reds. He's got 105 strikeouts in 74 and a third innings. Batters are hitting 125 against him. He's been incredible. If you believe your offense, when healthy, will be better next year, then you can focus on adding another top arm to go along with whatever remains of this grouping, because you still got Sonny Gray. Eric Fetty's under contract next year. You've got Palante. You still got Michaelis under contract. You still got Steven Matz. And then Michael McGreevy has, pushed his name into the circle of like, hey, here we are. I don't make anything, guys. Like, I'm ready to roll. Has looked good so far. As Zach mentions, can you move a Michaelis or a Matz in trades to clear up some salary to sign a bigger name? What about trading Eric Fetty? Would he have some worth to another team with what he did for most of the year? He didn't pitch bad last night against the Pirates, but I think we can all agree that so far he's been a disappointment since the Cardinals traded for him, and it was something I was absolutely nervous about at the deadline, that like he was not going to be enough. Like he was just he was good, but he's not somebody who moves the needle, and that's what the Cardinals really needed at the trade deadline this year. And they were, there just wasn't a lot of those guys available, to be honest. I mean, Jack Flaherty ended up being a huge piece of what's going on with the Dodgers right now. And that sucks because you just had him last year. So, but what about trading Fetty to make some room in the rotation to go get somebody like Blake Snell instead? Again, we're having a conversation here. I know the response is going to be no way they're going to do this, but it's something to talk about and think about. So I want your feedback down below. The next 2 guys are hitters, so let's go with the one that we haven't really discussed all that much. Haven't brought him up. We've said his name a couple times, but we haven't talked too much about him. Going to be one of the biggest bats on the market, first baseman Pete Alonso from the New York Mets. Here's what Zach has to say. The Cardinals look ready to let their veteran superstar Paul Goldschmidt walk in free agency. If the Cardinals have to re-sign Goldschmidt, the odds of them adding New York Mets slugger Pete Alonso drops quite a bit. Still, they could add Alonso while re-signing Goldschmidt with the idea of moving one of them to DH. Alonso is slashing .246, .331, .476 with 34 home runs, 31 doubles, and 87 RBIs this season. He's continuously shown that he's one of the elite power hitters in the entire league. Slotting him in the St. Louis lineup would be quite the dream scenario for Cardinals fans. Alonso has been dangled in potential trades for years now. The Mets opted to keep him, but the relationship could be a little strained because of these trade talks. Alonso is represented by the notorious baseball agent Scott Boras, who's famous for getting his clients to take the contract that has the most money attached to it. With the Mets looking to make a move for Juan Soto this offseason, the Cardinals have the opportunity to swipe Alonso right out from under their nose. Outbidding the Mets could be tough, but Alonso is the dream Paul Goldschmidt replacement in St. Louis. First off, the Cardinals signing both Paul Goldschmidt and Pete Alonso is, I'm going to go just say, is ludicrous. There's no way that is going to happen. So let's just move on from that idea. Okay, that's crazy talk. Alonso's going to be 30 in December, so he kind of fits the veteran area that the Cardinals would probably be looking for. I don't think they're trying to get anybody older, looking for somebody. If it's not going to be Goldschmidt, I don't think they want to sign somebody else who's going to be like 33, 34 years old. You'd want somebody like Alonso who's around 30 years old. That way he can be a cornerstone for you, and you could sign him to a lucrative 6-7 year deal. And then, he'd be Goldie's age right now when that deal is over with. And as bad as it's been this year for Paul Goldschmidt, when you look at the deal he was really, really good for every year except for this one, right? Even last year, he wasn't this bad. So, you're getting him coming down at the very back end of the contract, which, that's kind of how it's supposed to be. Perfect world, sure, you get from out of under the contract right before he falls off the cliff. But if it's going to happen, you want it to be in that final year. He's enjoyed hitting at Busch Stadium, right? Career at Busch Stadium, 17 games, 328, 6 home runs, 11 RBIs, the OPS at 1.158, which is one of the highest he's got at any ballpark in the leagues, especially at ballparks that he's played in a lot. So, it can be tough to hit at Busch Stadium. We know that, right? But when you've got somebody with the power that Pete Alonso possesses, he can hit it out of any ballpark where, some guys who might not have quite the launch angle or power, they're going to be down in the 20s, where Pete's still going to be 30, pushing 40 home runs a year, even if he plays half his games at Busch Stadium. Now, do I see the Mets letting him get away? I find that very unlikely. It seems like that's where he wants to be, especially when you've got unlimited funds in New York. But, with Boris as his guy, I suppose anything is possible. I wouldn't rule anything out. So that's the other name that you want to kind of keep in the back of your head. The third name is a guy that we've actually talked about here before, so we don't have to go too far in depth on this one. But it's Anthony Santander from the Baltimore Orioles that he brings up. The Orioles, let's see, what is guy? Zach says this about him. The biggest breakout outfielder of the season has been the Orioles, Anthony Santander. They are going to be very persistent in the pursuit of re-signing him this offseason, but Santander has played so well that he should receive quite a large contract. Santander has a career high in home runs this season after posting a career high in doubles last year. It may have taken him a while, but he's found his stride in the big leagues. Pulling him from Baltimore could be a tough task given the fact that he's played his entire big league career with them, but with the right contract, St. Louis could bring him in. The Cardinals need an impact bat in their outfield, and Santander would be the perfect option to take on. Like I said, we've talked about Santander before, where he seems like he's got Cardinals written all over, right? He's not a well-known superstar, so he probably won't be quite as expensive. The price tag should be a little bit lower. He's a switch hitter, which we like. We enjoyed it when Carlos Beltran was here. Lance Berkman switch. We like our switch hitters that got some pop, and definitely has that 42 home runs this year. He's going to be 30 next month, so he's not too old, but he's not so early in his prime that he's going to be super expensive. Like, he's still not going to be cheap, but he's not going to be like Juan Soto, where, he's just the tip of the iceberg of what he's going to be, doing throughout his career, likely. He is another outfielder, which, we continue to do this. We continue to cycle in and out these outfielders, trying to find that perfect combination. I mean, you've got Donovan, you got Nootbaar, Siani, Walker, Burleson. Victor Scott's behind them and waiting. What is Matt Koperniak in Memphis going to be? He's had a monster year. He's 26 years old, left-handed hitter, hit 309, 19 home runs, and 71 RBIs at Memphis. Like, how is he not going to get a shot to see what he can do at the major league level? Why is that? I don't know. What if? I'm going to throw this out there for you. Let's play fantasy baseball here for a second. What if you sign Anthony Santander, you make a trade for Brent Rooker from the Oakland A's, and you've got Siani and Scott and Walker as your outfielders with them? I'm not saying you're trading Brendan Donovan, but what if he slides to second with JC and Wynn up the middle? Maybe you're moving Gorman. Maybe you're moving Nootbaar in this situation. And then you slide Burleson into first base along with Luke and Baker. I know. We're dreaming here, but it's fun to talk about. I'll keep dreaming, but let me know your thoughts on these names. So if you had to pick one of them, Blake Snell, Pete Alonso, or Anthony Santander, which one would you select first? If you could afford them, that's the one you want over all the other two. Then give me which one of the three do you think the Cardinals would actually do? If we snap back to reality, which one of those three do you think the Cardinals could actually sign. So that's what I want from you so we can discuss this in an upcoming episode. Coming up next, let's talk about the Cleveland Guardians who are in town this weekend. How is it a team like the Guardians have the best record in the American League, while a team like the Cardinals are where they are in the National League? When you go look at their stats, not a whole lot of difference except for a couple of spots. So we'll get into that next year on Locked On Cardinals. You've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, and now we've got something a little different for you. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with a YouTube TV-based plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game from the comforts of your own home. You don't even have to be at your own home because you'll have YouTube right there on your phone, on your tablet, whatever you use, and you can take it with you. So if you got a Sunday afternoon and the kids are playing soccer or football or whatever's going on, and you're like, oh my gosh, I can't be at home for it, you still have it with you. It's still there, dude. It's so cool. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment. You can cancel anytime, whether your team is the Chiefs, whether it's still the Rams, whether it's the Cowboys, the Packers, the Dolphins, coast to coast, baby. It doesn't matter. This is the deal for you if you're an NFL fan. If you've never had NFL Sunday Ticket before, great opportunity to test it out because, again, you can cancel anytime. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to download America's #1 sportsbook. Thank you for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen today. Now go check out Locked On MLB. Prepare for the Fall Classic with Sully, who's got you covered each and every day. You can find the link to Locked On MLB in the description, so you don't need to search. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. All right, taking a look around the league. Your updated standings have got the Cardinals at 77 and 76. They're 1 game back of the Cubs for second in the Central, 8 back of the NL wild card. The end is near. We know it. Now, the Guardians are in town this week, and so the Cardinals have a chance to play spoiler because the Guardians are still playing for something. They've already clinched a playoff spot. They're going to the postseason, tied with the Yankees for the best record in the American League. So they're still fighting for that #1 seed overall. So this weekend's going to be quite important to them. So when you look at the pitching matchups, you're going to be like, what? Because wait till you hear these names, all right? So the Cardinals got Kyle Gibson against Ben Lively for the Guardians, who Ben Lively was with the Reds before that. They picked him off the trash heap, and he became something for the Reds last year. Now he's doing well with the Guardians this year. Saturday, Miles Michaelis against left-hander Matthew Boyd, who has been with the Tigers. You'll probably remember him from that. Then there's Sunday's game, Andre Palante against Gavin Williams, who is 3-10 on the year and is in the starting rotation for the Cleveland Guardians, who have 89 wins on the season. How is this team tied with the New York Yankees for the best record in the American League? Like, if you look at the starting rotation, the Cardinal starters have a lower combined ERA. They've given up 17 less home runs, have just 1 less win than the Guardians, and have thrown over 50 more innings than the Guardians starters. To the bullpen we go. Guardians bullpen, league-leading 2.64 ERA over 593 innings, which is the 8th highest total in the league. Opponents are hitting just .201 against their bullpen. That leads the league. Their bullpen is elite. The Cardinals is very good. It's been very good. But the Cleveland bullpen is out of this world elite right now. Emmanuel Clase, going to be the closer of the year in the American League by far. Ryan Helsley for the Cardinals could be the closer of the year in the National League. They're tied with each other for the most saves in the league. Offensively, the Guardians also got a couple guys who do like serious damage. They don't just have a bunch of just okay hitters. They got 2 guys who are just crushing it. Jose Ramirez, I'm sure you know, very close to being a 40-40 guy this year. 35 dingers, 39 stolen bases, 107 RBIs. Josh Naylor's got 31 dingers and knocked in over 100. Stephen Kwan has had a big season, although he's on the IL right now. But as a team, their offensive stats aren't all that much better than the Cardinals, except one spot. One spot. And I'm pretty sure you know where I'm going with this. Runners in scoring position. Guardians are hitting .263 with runners in scoring position this year. That's 10th in the major leagues. The Cardinals are hitting 226. They are almost 40 points less, which is 28th in the league. Guardians OPS with runners in scoring position, 774. That's 10th. The Cardinals, 636, 28th. They've got a better bullpen, although the Cardinals have a good one. And they just have clutch hitting. They come through when people are on base. They also are a very good defensive team. They have the second most defensive runs saved in the league at 82. The Cardinals have 26, which is nothing to sneeze at. The Cardinals are 11th. It's not like the Cardinals are terrible or something. Not awful, but Cleveland is just way up there behind only the Toronto Blue Jays out of all teams when it comes to defensive runs saved. And the Guardians are just getting more for their buck from their players. They have a current payroll of $107 million. Cardinals are at 176. The Guardians have also done this without their best pitcher, Shane Bieber, who also happens to be their highest paid pitcher and second highest paid player behind Ramirez at $13 million. Again, the Cardinals are paying Miles Mikolas $17.6 million a year to do what he does. Kyle Gibson's getting 12. Matt's 12.5. Lynn makes 10. They're just getting more for their buck. They're just getting more for their buck, whether it's coaching, whatever it is, they're doing it better. Also, a quick shout out to Shohei Ohtani, 50-50, extraordinary, perhaps the greatest offensive game in the history of baseball yesterday, going 6 for 6, 3 home runs, 10 ribbies, couple of stolen bases, couple of doubles, just absurd stuff from Ohtani. Going to be fun to finally get to see him in the playoffs since he's never been there before, which is a travesty. All right, thanks for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen every day. If you haven't already, please give us a follow on Twitter, X at LO_Cardinals and at JD Sports Radio. Like, subscribe on YouTube, and help our love and channel grow. You guys are the best fans in baseball for a reason. We'll see you next time on Locked On Cardinals.